Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here with my good friends and industry insiders, Chuck White, president of IAM, Oded Carmi, president of DN Vanlines. Hand motion.
Oh, yeah. I'm listening.
Michael Gonzalez, president and CEO of Denali Group. How's it going, gentlemen?
Wonderful.
Very good.
We are here today, right now, to discuss the Global Household Goods contract, which was announced last week. It has been awarded finally, and we're going to unpack what that means for you on today's show. This is your opportunity also to ask questions. If you don't know how to spell GHC, we're going to define it for you here today. You can ask questions around what does this mean for you and your industry here. But right now, hit that like button. Go ahead and check in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are, what company you work for. Give yourself a shout out. Throw something in there. If you want to talk about our guest today, feel free to get in there as well. Valerie McKenzie, hey, all looking forward to hearing all about the household stuff. Happy Monday. Deluxe Suites tuning in from Phoenix. What's up, Val? Let's get this GHC talk going. Quirk is in the house. Jeff Nadeau, good to see you all. You too, Mr. White.
Wow, I think that was a slam, wasn't it?
He's trying.
He was dissing me.
Jack Jampel, hello, gentlemen. What's up?
Hello,
Jack over there. What's up, Jack? Good to see you. I'd love to hear your questions from a corporate standpoint, Jack. Also, Jeff Nadeau, I'd love to hear your questions and thoughts as well. Brian Crockett checking in from Olympia Moving. Awesome. Lakeland Fennel, Dab's in the house.
New vice chair of USDAB, Lake right there.
Oh, Lakeland.
Nice. Oded, define that real quick for everybody out there who doesn't know what the DAB is.
Well, USDAB stands for U.S. Domestic Asset-Based Mover, and it's our group here at IAM to represent the interests of the boots on the ground, the people with the warehouses and the trucks. And it was a group that, alongside IAM, Chuck Bailey and myself were the first co-chairs, and we stood up the group. And it went from being an advisor group to actually a group in IAM's bylaws. And we just, at the recent annual convention, we handed off the leadership positions to Chris Lance from Beacons Moving Solutions as the new chair, and Lakeland Fennel from Nielsen as the new vice chair. So very exciting times for USDAB.
Awesome. And real quick, Chuck, why is it important for any movers out there in the U.S. that are domestic asset-based, i.e. have trucks? Why is it important for them to get involved in IAM and the USDAB committee?
Well, I really think they've been underrepresented in the past in the national and international association world. And IAM is stepping forward to try to bring them forward, give them appropriate representation. We've just added the chairman of that group to our board of directors, to our executive committee, and they are going to have a significant voice in how IAM moves forward. So if you want a voice in how you are represented, then the DAB's the place to be.
You know, and that's a really great segue too. We got people checking in. Hit that like button right now. Get active in the comments. Let us know what questions you have. That's actually a really great segue, because the assets on the ground, or the money to the curb, which was a big hot topic, right? How much money is actually getting to the drivers, to the labor, to the folks that are doing the work out there. That was a big point of emphasis, it seemed like, through this whole process. For the Department of Defense going out and actually going to bid. Can you explain a little bit around why that was so important, Chuck?
Are you asking?
Yes,
you asking me?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Well, and I'm not so sure that was really what was the driving force behind this new initiative, the Global Household Good Contract. I think what was happening was there a lot of discussion in the current program called the Defense Personal Property Program, DP3, that we had seen the rise of the advent of what were called move managers. And there was concern that they were taking the cream off of the top, at least by some, and that the actual money was not being filtered down to the folks that were the asset-based group that were actually walking into the homes, doing the packing and loading and driving cross country. And so there was a lot of concern about that. There were a number of initiatives in the current model to try to drive some of that money back down to the curb. And I'm not so sure that the global household good contract is focused on that. It's going to be interesting to see. There is a lot of money involved over the first 3 years.
How much money, Chuck? How much is a lot? Because I mean, I know what we spend on bar tabs. I mean, is that kind of money, Chuck? Or?
Yeah, if I'm drinking.
Yeah, well, that's the truth. I've had to pay those tabs. The kind of money we're talking about is in the initial 3 years, which is the first phase of this contract. I think it's $6.3 billion that's associated with it. First 3 years.
$6.3 billion.
Correct.
And what is the total potential term of the contract?
Well, the total potential term with all of the revisions and options, thank you very much, it is around $19 billion, with a B. I mean, we're talking an unbelievable amount of money over the life. And that's why a number of major military contractors got involved in the bid in this initiative, because, we weren't talking about them becoming one element. We were talking about them taking over the entire program to the tune of, as I said, over the course of the potential life of the contract, about $19 billion. Crazy money.
But Ben, I should add to that there was a change in that contract amount from the last award to this one, a change of about $1 billion in the negative direction, meaning the government is paying $1 billion less for the services over the 3 years. So there is a little bit of a change. When it was originally awarded Team ARC, I believe it was around 7.1 or 7.2 billion contract. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's where my concern is. This was supposed to be, with that B, not an M.
B.
The concern is that with that reduction in the first 3 years of the contract, is money going to make its way down to the curb? Who knows? I mean, it's going to be up to that contractor to be able to find the capacity to be able to handle 300,000 to 400,000 shipments a year done by the Department of Defense. Are they going to have the wherewithal to take that money to make it worthwhile for companies to be able to move household goods for the Department of Defense? That's the critical piece. That's the critical answer. The critical question to answer.
Speaking of questions, put your questions in the comments right now. We got a ton of people watching this right now on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Hit that like button right now and put some questions in here.
How do I hit the like button? Can I hit the like button?
You got to bring it up on your phone. I know for you it's extra, but you got to bring it up on your phone.
You mean I got to look at myself on a phone?
Every like counts.
Not to edit what you said in the beginning. You said finally awarded. I wanted to remind everybody that this has been awarded once already, right? Twice already. So this is not something that has not been awarded yet. So there is some time now that we have to wait to see how this all plays out.
We'll go through that real quick here. Who was it initially awarded to, and then what happened after that, and then let's talk about who it was awarded to now, so people understand who the players are involved.
So it was initially awarded twice to Team ARC, is
and who is Team ARC? Just for everybody, who's comprised of Team ARC?
So it'd be Unigroup, Atlas, Chuck. I mean, maybe you can.
ARC is American roll-off, roll-on carriers. That's
roll-off.
Yep.
Deloitte, which is a major government contractor, and Pasha, which is a Jones Act shipping lines, but a big player in Hawaii, Guam, that whole Jones Act trade, which are U.S. territories.
And Sudeth, I think, also was.
I'm sorry.
That's correct. Of course. Yep. I know.
So United, Mayflower, who's Unigroup, Atlas, and then Sudeth for the international piece, as well as some of those other contractors as well.
Correct.
And now, so it was awarded to them, and then it was re-awarded after being contested.
Yeah, it was a quick GAO audit. 10 days after that GAO audit was dismissed, they went ahead and awarded again. So that's the reason why Michael initially said it was awarded once, because many of us in the industry, that happened so quickly that it seemed like part of the first award, but technically it was re-awarded too.
That's correct.
And now,
once the protest happens, though, Ben, real fast. Once a protest happens, they have 90 days, right, Chuck, to review that.
100 days.
100 days to review.
And when Michael says they, he's talking about GAO, the Government Accountability Office. That's the first. When you go to protest, it's really the first mechanism, the first lever that you're kind of pressing on.
So I noticed that. I mean, I'm just looking at comments too, Ben, as I'm talking to you. I see that Pete's asking can it be contested again?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it can be. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's walk through this. So then it was contested, it was awarded, it was contested, it was re-awarded, and now it's been awarded to a new winner just last week.
Mm-hmm.
So who's
late
the new,
last week?
This
is new.
The new one is a consortium called HomeSafe. HomeSafe is made up of a company called KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root, a subsidiary of Halliburton, is what I understand, and Tier 1, which is a current move manager in the DP3 environment. And it was interesting. So the initial set of bidders, there were 4 of them. American President Lines, APL, led a group that included Serva, Allied, and North American. After the initial bid was protested, and then the contract was reissued, or the bid process was redone, they decided not to bid. And so Serva found another partner, and that partner was HomeSafe. They're not a named entity as part of HomeSafe, but a huge strategic partner with that group. And look, if you ask me, I don't know. I wasn't part of the group that decided this, but I think adding Serva to that group was a big piece, and also pricing were probably the 2 determining factors in HomeSafe being awarded the contract.
And I think that coming out of that first or the second protest, I think the pricing concerns were one of the things that was highlighted in there, where, the USTRANSCOM is supposed to make decisions in the best interest of the U.S. government, and there was a question there if another bid team is being rated fairly closely to the way you're rated, but at a much lower price point, what's best for the U.S. government? So I think Chuck is exactly right on. I actually don't know if the addition of Serva was as big of a deal as the price point was, because ultimately, listen, this is now a third go around for USTRANSCOM, and they want this to be successful, and they've been giving the blueprint by GAO as to what they're looking for. And so I think this is probably one of their big focuses when reviewing the bids again, is to make sure that this time around it would withstand protest.
I mean, you talk about the addition. So I think the addition of Serva was huge, because now you're talking about the second largest group of assets, right? And you have to. I mean, I feel like they have to award it to assets, right? Or else they're not going to accomplish, the objectives that I believe they have in mind. So I think if you consider the first group have been disqualified due to other things in the protests and whatnot, then the second largest group of assets, and also this less money, makes sense. We got some great questions. Can we get to some? Let's get to some questions here.
Before you go on to the questions real quick, Ben, I rarely disagree with you. I disagree with you a little bit here, and it is that this was called, the title of this is a move management contract. If you're focused on assets, those trucks don't drive across the ocean. You better be able to manage both, all of your domestic traffic, but your international as well. It's about the management of the traffic, not necessarily how many trucks. I'm not sure. How many trucks is Serva going to dedicate to the new program?
Yeah,
Will all of their agents in the corporate and in the COD arena are they going to throw that work aside and focus on the Department of Defense work? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that, Chuck. And historically, I'm an independent, so I don't have a lot of the Vanline reference. But Unigroup did have a lot of presence hauling DP3 shipments. I don't think to the level that Serva, not to that extent. So I really do wonder what role Serva will play in here. I think that you're going to find, at least my opinion is, on the domestic side, that those companies that have the trucks and the warehouses that have been moving military household goods for years, decades, it may be, will continue doing that. I mean, the industry is facing severe capacity issues, and I don't think any one party can handle the nation's or our industry's largest customer. I mean, we couldn't do it last summer, we couldn't do it this summer before, and I see us facing struggles next summer.
Well, I got to think though that if Serva and their group retains the contract, and we'll kind of get into the what ifs here in a minute, that they're going to recruit quite a few agents who were independents or maybe of a different color van line or whatever. So it's not about necessarily, if I'm looking at this, I'm not saying what percentage of their current fleet are they going to allocate to this, because the answer is 100% probably wouldn't be enough. So they're going to be actively recruiting, especially in those military markets, those Fayetteville, North Carolinas, and those kind of Killeen, Texas, et cetera.
But Ben, does the capacity change from them doing that? The capacity is exactly the same. We're already
overall gross capacity doesn't change. No,
yeah, it stays the same. So we, like Oded was saying, I think, is that we're still going to struggle. Not any one person, not all of us can handle it. So,
well, actually, Michael, I could tell a story where the capacity does change somewhat, because if you tap into capacity that was hauling COD, that was hauling national account work, that would be new capacity to the program per se. I mean, you're not making new trucks on the road, but you are reallocating what they're doing. So you could say,
I agree. Then that's why the Jack Jampels of the world need to be listening to this conversation, because is there a shift that may take place in this new environment if the rich can get richer and we can shift some of the demand away from, or if some of the demand can be shifted away from the corporate arena over to the DoD arena? Maybe there's some concerns on what capacity is then available at the corporate level.
Yeah, and I want to focus on one thing that Chuck said. This is a move management contract. And when I got the calls on Thursday morning that the award had been announced, the way it wasn't presented to me, it wasn't the KBR Team 1, it wasn't the Serva Team 1, it was Tier 1. That's the way people colloquially here, in this industry looked at it. And let's be honest, out of that group, Tier 1 is the move manager. So you have to assume that they're going to take the lead in a lot of the aspects of this contract. And Tier 1 has been working with every single company out there for a long time. And so I'm not that worried about the, Serva's part of this deal and Serva's going to eat up all the business. I just don't think that's a realistic concern, in my opinion.
The comments are on fire right now, and I'm just like a kid in the candy store over here with which one to go to first here. I probably shouldn't openly relish this moment so much, but I can't help myself. This is like the Super Bowl for moving here. Let's see here. I'm gonna work backwards. Actually, I'm gonna do something. Normally I do first come, first serve. We're gonna work backwards here. We're gonna see what's going on here. Stephen Myers, the driver, tuning in. Probably everyone who wants all the shipments is going to get some. Capacity is going to be an issue in peak season, 100%. Martin Mayotte says HomeSafe has been in business for 2 years, and KBR is a construction firm. Neither have experience in household goods management. If management is critical and the past moves were poorly managed, how can anyone, member suppliers, feel confident with their lack of experience?
Well, that's not true, because HomeSafe is KBR, no question about it, is not a firm that has been involved in the household goods arena, but Tier 1 is probably the number 2, or 1A and 1B at the top of the management of the DoD household good program. So they have significant background in DoD moving.
Yeah, and Martin, just to clarify, HomeSafe is kind of the consortium or the joint venture company that houses, and they all kind of do different things, right? KBR's expertise is a government prime contractor, being able to put this whole thing together, fund it, all that kind of good stuff. Tier 1 is the move management arm. Service kind of the men in trucks kind of arm, right? And so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'll say this: you're dealing with three large government contractors. You have Deloitte, you have Crowley, and you have
you mean at the top of these? Yes,
right,
yes,
right. So all these three big teams had a big government contractor leading in some way, whether it's like I said, Crowley, Deloitte, or KBR. So you were gonna have that no matter which direction the USCC decided to go in.
We got a question here. Pete here says he's asking about how is the pricing of this contract going to compare to the current structure? Does anyone have a guess?
I have a guess, but I have no internal knowledge. This is up to the move management company to decide how payment will be tendered. But I would say they're going to have some type of contract, whether it be an internal contract, a 400N that used to be in place, a 400NG, which is the current government model that they use for a tariff. But it's going to be some type of tariff, and then pricing will be based off of that. How they're going to do it, how they would get all of the rates associated with it from all of the different service providers that they will be working with, I think is to be determined.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's not going to be the 400G. I can tell you that much. It's going to be probably a completely new way of looking things. I've heard, going to more of an international model on a per hundredweight basis.
Yeah, yep. That's a possibility.
Yep, we've heard a lot of that, and so it's definitely going to be different. I got to be honest with you. I think that things have changed. I'm not going to talk specific rates for non-compete reasons, but the general direction of rates from discount level has gone down. The rate reasonableness of USCC has gone down over the last few years, and I think for a lot of us, we've been kind of spoiled. Especially during the summer, to operate at very low discounts. I honestly don't think that's sustainable, and I don't think that's what's going to happen under the contract. So I do think there's going to be a readjustment, and I think there are going to be people that choose that the business just isn't profitable enough for them anymore, and maybe go into COD or into corporate or into many different facets of our business. And I'll tell you, right now, the demand is huge. We're in a big demand surge. When this is actually implemented, what the economic conditions will be, I don't know, Ben. But I will tell you that it's going to be very tough for the prime contractor here to compare to these peak discounts that we've been getting used to over the last few years.
Yeah,
really I think that's all to be determined. If the goal, and we'll see what the goal is. If the goal is quality, if the goal is capacity, if the goals are capacity and quality, then they are going to have to be willing to invest in that and get the cream will rise to the top. And so we'll see. I just think it's on the part of the contractor, I think it's a bit disingenuous to talk about the fact in the first 3 years, you're going to have an excess of $6 billion in potential revenue, and somehow or other, you're going to cut what that piece going to the boots on the ground is. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to justify that and maintain the capacity that they need to be successful in the contract.
Yeah, and Michael's correct, by the way. The current capacity issue that we're having, if you're in this industry, is a labor shortage. I mean, getting the people to do the work, you can have the warehouse, so you can have the trucks, but you have nobody to do their work. It doesn't matter. So again, these are the post-pandemic market conditions. 2 or 3 years from now, when I think that this program will ultimately be implemented or won't be implemented, we'll find out. The market conditions could be very different. We could be going through another wave of pandemic. The pandemic could be long, in our rear view windows. We really don't know. But I'll tell you, he's right. Michael's right. Labor is a big issue.
Yeah, there people are wondering where the money's going to come from here. Is the prime going to eat it? It's going to be really interesting. Georgia wants to hear from an agent and also an owner-operator point of view. How about from an agent point of view first here, Oded, as an agency owner who's been supporting military moves for years now, and doing a really good job of it. What does this mean to your business?
It means uncertainty. And anytime you have uncertainty, it gives you a lot of difficulties in making investments, right? And so right now we have this big question mark, right? Do we continue opening locations with DoD approved warehouses and really, plan on having this business indefinitely or not? And so I think, again, part of the capacity issue that we're having right now in specifically as it relates to the Defense Personal Property Program is I think that there's been a kind of a halt in the growth of capacity because a lot of people are just unwilling to invest until they have that certainty. So we don't know. We think that we know that we have a peak season next year, and now we might have a peak season in 2023. General Von Ovos, in her YouTube video that I hope every one of you goes out and watches, says, and this is a quote, "The first shipments of this program will start moving in 2023." So first shipments start moving. That seems to indicate to me like a Q3, Q4 phase in, which means that we'll likely have another peak season, right? Following the next one up. And so, but we don't know, right? It's all a crapshoot. And when you have a crapshoot as a business person, you can't plan and you can't invest. So that's a real implication for me.
You know what, Michael, I'm gonna ask you the same thing. From an international standpoint, what does this mean to the international TSPs? Transportation service providers, I should say.
Well, I don't know if there's any good news with that, really. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people are, especially international TSPs, that are not happy about this because it means there's no move management company. The TSP is no longer really a valid entity in this new program. They go away unless they can find out ways to, like a niche inside with the KBR HomeSafe kind of alliance. If they can find a niche and say they could help out in that area, there might be some opportunity there. I agree with Oded. There's lots of uncertainty with this, but there's also business opportunities and uncertainty. So I always say we're a very smart industry. We didn't think, a lot of us were against the DP3 concept and whether that would work or not. And look at us, we're working in it, right? We figured it out. I think it'll be the same thing with this new contract. If it happens, I think there'll be some opportunity for some. You just got to find out where that's at.
Not sure I agree with Michael on that opportunity on the international TSP side. You saw Don's Hazel's comment there come up. We've got 170 or so approved transportation service providers in the international market. Many of them are small businesses, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people in an office that have an expertise. They could be generational, could be second and third generation families owning these TSPs and understanding how to move shipments efficiently in the DoD's international marketplace. I personally don't understand how a move manager on this contract can build efficiencies that they're going to need to build with 170 providers. Could there be 10? Could there be 5? Could there be 1 subsumed under this move manager? That's the direction I see, unfortunately. And that's one of the reasons initially IAM fought this and fought it pretty hard, because we saw the core member of our association falling by the wayside. And it's significant and it's scary to me.
You know what, Chuck? I got a great, you bring up some really great points here. All of you do. If you're in the comments right now, hit that like button right now. We've got some incredible news and analysis here on the Global Household Goods contract, which was re-awarded last week. It is possibly up to $19 billion-ish, maybe a little less, give or take. What's a billion between friends?
A billion here, a billion there.
Yeah, exactly. No, but throw it in the comments if you got questions. We got some really good ones. We're going to try to get to all of them. But Chuck, you just brought up a great point. What happens if this consortium can't perform? And you've shrank down the providers, hundreds of providers go away, and all that capability and all that back office staff and infrastructure and all that ability, capacity and all that stuff goes away, and then you put all your eggs in the basket, brand new basket. What happens if they can't perform?
Well, that's a great question. And in fact, it's kind of funny. We've been asking since the program began, what's the backup plan? There really isn't a backup plan. What we were told initially was that, well, we'll try to continue to solicit rates from transportation service providers for a few years. And in case it falls apart, we'll have that to fall back on. You're going to solicit rates, i.e. you're going to make sure I have to have insurance still. I've got to have my bonds in place. I've got to have all of the other pieces of the pie that keep me afloat, but I don't get any traffic. And I'm just going to sit around and twiddle my thumbs and wait. That is just silliness. Now, I don't know if folks read the article that came out in the Military Times the day after the award. One of the things, Colonel Safranek, who is now the new Director of Personal Property, that's household goods in DoD terms, at U.S. Transportation Command said, well, if we're not happy, we've got 3 years initially on this contract, we can just go out and rebid it again. Are you kidding me? Rebid it again? What, with that contractor continuing while the rebid process is going on? You're going to start some crazy program somewhere else? I mean, how? Once you get this entity in place for 3 years and you break down the model of what you've done in the past, how in the hell are you bringing that back again? I don't get it. I really don't. There is no backup plan.
I have to actually jump because I have an important visitor coming, but I just want to leave you guys with one thought, one really big piece of analysis, and this relates to the freight forwarders specifically. I think that this news was good news for GHC delayers. Those people that want to see DP3 continue and have a bit more uncertainty. I think by far the path of least resistance for USDC would have been to award it again to TMARC, because they've done it once, they've done it a second time, they do it a third time. It's easy to make an argument that, hey, this has been the best for the government all along, and this has continued to be our choice. Now with a reverse in course, a change in direction, I think that the original, the team that won the bid the first 2 times is emboldened. I think that they are going to put up a very big fight. And to be honest with you, they've been preparing this for years. And there was a lot of uncertainty here. Whether, there's a lot of people on the winning bid team that themselves weren't confident or didn't know if they were going to win it. They've got to now start and kick things into high gear pretty quickly to get set up, where, TMARC certainly had a lot of time to already work on this. So for those freight forwarders that are planning to continue operating until this goes away, until DP3 goes away, I think this is a little bit of good news. And again, do I think it's going to be overturned? Or I'm not saying anything of that type. I'm just saying that I think that it's going to go on for longer than it would have had it been reawarded to TMARC.
All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot right now, Oded. Do you expect the decision to change again? Yes or no?
Okay, so betting man, no. I mean, I think that once it's awarded, even originally when you asked me, anytime, the first time it was awarded, the second time, the chances of a GA audit being sustained are always very low. And so, is it a possibility? Absolutely. But is it going to stay with HomeSafe? Yes. And the last thing I think, when I thought about this call, I thought about like a runner, a baseball runner going into like home base, and just like the catcher is like, yeah, they're like HomeSafe. That's how close the call was. But they're there. So again, Ben, thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm sorry to have to leave early, but
don't everybody go. We got a lot more to talk about here. We're going to answer all your questions. We're just getting rid of Oded, arguably addition by subtraction. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Michael, the same question here from Janet. Do you expect the decision to change again?
With just a yes or no, I would say yes. No. I don't think it will change. I think it's. I would like to think that USTC and the government bid process, that they did their due diligence this time and really made sure that this was ironclad. Am I 100% certain of it? No, but I would say that it does stay with the HomeSafe.
Chuck, I'm going to ask the same question. Yes or no answer.
Don't disagree with me, Chuck.
I don't know. I mean, I have to say, I think that there is going to be so many machinations at this point from all of the bidders that this could go on. I agree with Oded that this could prolong the DP3 program as we go through protests and then potentially legal actions in the court of federal claims. So I think it's just to be determined. I don't think there's any of us who had any idea. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that that originally would be pulled back from ARC and then reawarded to ARC, and then a protest that pulled and started the process again. Here's the question that I will ask. If it is overturned, does the government have the wherewithal to start this up again and go down this road again? Or does the GHC die on the vine? I mean, we're 3 to 4 years into it now.
If they pull it, if they protest, pull it back, whatever, do they just basically reconsider the 3 bids again, like kind of the way they did before? Or do they?
That's not what they did. What happened was there was initial protest to GAO, as was already mentioned. There was a very short window where TRANSCOM pulled it back because there was a question about the ownership group for ARC, American Roll-On Roll-Off Carriers, where there was foreign and where is associated with a different entity. And TRANSCOM determined they just clicked the wrong button and chose the wrong group. Okay. And then they reawarded it. Then it was the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, who considered the full protest. And to my knowledge, basically, the problems associated with the bid had nothing to do with Team ARC. The determination was made that TRANSCOM did not handle their processes very well, and they said go back and start again. And so they had to resolicit new bids again. It went through a full year-long process to get to where we were with the award last week. If they have to do that again, I'm not so sure that they have the ability, the wherewithal, I will say it, the guts to go back and do this all over again.
All right, we got all these questions coming. I want to ask all of them. I see you, Megan Harless. We're going to ask your question. Ernest Pena, we're going to ask your question. Lake, I see you. Vinny Valverde, Jack, I see all of you right there. I'm going to get to all these questions here, or at least try to. We got some amazing things in the comments here. This is great. This is great. Megan saying, as I was told, we will have mechanisms in place to ensure it does not fail. We do not need a backup plan. Oh gosh.
Okay.
Larry wants to know what penalties if they fail. Are there penalties written into the bid?
I believe there are. I don't have the contract in front of me. I haven't looked at it for quite a while now. But there are. I think it's more the other way around. There are incentives in the contract, and if the incentives are not met, then the full value of the contract is not paid. So it's not really penalties. You just don't get what you could have possibly gotten if you're failing.
Got it. Lake says, he wanted me to direct this question to you, Michael. Oh. He says, question for Michael. Would award to another bidder have led to more certainty than HomeSafe?
I can't answer that. I'm right now. I don't even know what this means, right? So we're all trying to navigate this together. There's so much uncertainty right now. I mean, we mentioned pay. I mean, I'm also an agency as well. And so trying to factor all of this in, like Oded was saying, it brings a lot of uncertainty. We just don't know. I mean, right now, I'm waiting for the protest period to kind of get through, get that period over, and then see what the next step is. But I don't have that answer. Lakeland.
Yeah, it's an unfair question, but I never promised fairness, Michael.
Well, that's true. Although Chuck did answer yes or no on his question. I'm just pointing that out.
I never promised you a rose garden.
None of you are without fault here on this show today. Vinny says, and Vinny's a corporate mobility manager there with UPS, and Vinny leads a nice sized program there. And thank you, Vinny, so much for speaking at the IAM conference. Vinny says, for the household goods professionals, help us out, corporate clients. What are some of the key items that we should look for when administering our own program via an RMC or a direct contract? Any changes that we should start thinking about?
Here's what look, the relationship and the open communication between the corporates and their providers, whether they be through the RMCs and or through direct contract, I think is the critical piece. We've got in our industry so many cost drivers right now that the corporate clients have to understand. I mean, we've got box manufacturers, we've got cardboard manufacturers that are just increasing prices, seems like every couple of months. You know, we've got the supply chain crisis. We've got transportation costs that are rising. We've got fuel costs that are rising. There are so many economic factors that are bombarding your service providers that you need to have a real sit down and talk to them about what it takes to be able to maintain their quality. And I know that's a tough ask when we start talking about budgeting and increasing costs, but man, oh man, we are getting hit as an industry from all sides. And the corporate client, I think, has to come to that realization. I think we've done a pretty good job as an industry, and I would include the full mobility industry from the RMCs on down to DSPs, et cetera. We for a long time took up the slack and handled the problems for those corporate clients. And at some point, we're gonna have to cry uncle and say, we've got to come to a meeting of the minds and make this a true partnership as we move forward.
Yeah, you know, if I were to answer you, Vinny, here, I would just say diversity is key. You know, diversify your portfolio of providers. What do I mean by that? So, you know, I'll talk to corporate clients, and they'll be using 3 Unigroup agents, right, as their providers, or RMCs that use all Atlas agents, or, you know, a corporate client that's 100% with a Serva agent. You know, and I would just say to make sure that you kind of spread your eggs around. If you go to bid for provider direct provider relationships, actually, as Jack Jampel down here suggests, he says preferred relationship is key. Even if you use RMC contracts, you will still get a good pricing from their contracts. I would say, you know, have a, you know, for instance, the way just look at the way that these contracts were put, these consortiums were put together, right? You had Atlas and Unigroup and SUDA, which is also an agent of Unigroup, in on one consortium. You have North American and Allied in on another consortium, right? So if I'm a corporate, you know, mobility manager with 2,000 moves or something, I'm making sure I got room on a truck for, I want to have maybe a van line from each one, so that, God forbid, all the capacity goes away one day, that I have a relationship with one. That's
shout out to the third group had 2 what I would call mid-tier van lines, national van lines and interstate, but they were big providers in the DoD arena, some of the most significant. And so they brought experience, expertise, and capacity to on hard asset side for the Crowley TMM group. So, you know, it's I hear you on the diversity side.
And Janet actually brings up a good point. Agreed, Janet, have some independence in the mix as well. And if you need to find some good independents, because they're not always top of mind, to be honest with you, you're not necessarily your household names, check out the IAM DAB group, because it's full of excellent independent operators.
Great call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem, Chuck. This is something our industry has got to get better with. With transparency comes great partnership, for sure.
That's the word. Transparency, I think, is critical on both sides. We both got to come to the table showing our hands here and keeping it real.
Yeah, and Jack mentioned Vinny, and we'll wrap Vinny's question with this. He's like, you can, pick your carriers, have direct preferred contracts with them, but utilize an audit company. And he recommends going through an RMC to manage the process, billing, and audit. That's not a bad idea as much as audit companies are paying. I can understand the need for them for sure. Let's see here. Larry Fry, the industry's in the perfect storm. Does anybody remember how that movie ended?
I'm not real happy with that ending.
Oh my gosh, this is great.
Wow, Larry, that was hurtful.
Megan's late, but go Braves. Very cool. We have some other really interesting questions up here as well. Let's see if we can find all of those excellent questions here.
I love the mix of people that are on your show, by the way. We go from military spouses to heads of corporate relocation groups. I mean, RMCs. It is the mix of our industry, no question about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Janet Turner, always with a sharp eye. What's different about your hair? She says. Thank you. Thank you so much. Val noticed it has body. Yes, it does. Yep.
I think you're going for that whole kid and play thing, straight up, square off the top. Is that where we're going?
At least you didn't say Vanilla Ice. I'll take it. This is great.
All right.
So much fun here. Let's see here. Steve Myers, the driver. Who is going to haul Tier 1 managed tonnage? I don't know. Steve, you should tell us.
Hey, I think it'd be Steve if they pay enough, I'll bet.
I think that's kind of where he's going. Scott says now it's going to be a paperwork pusher. Don't know a damn thing about relocation. More high discounts. Good luck getting this trash hauled.
Who's Scott? Is Scott a driver too?
I'm going to just go out on a limb and say Scott's a driver.
Okay.
Welcome to the party, Scott.
Yeah. Crack a cold one, Scott. Leave it in the comments. Let's see here. Jack's saying what he wants to understand the issue here. Are you saying that the winner of the contract does not know how to pay the partners fairly that they may use?
I'm not saying that at all. Look, I think
he's talking to the people in the comments. I think he's talking to the people in the comments, the drivers and such. Gotcha. That kind of like, because
we just don't know.
Here, let me say this off the top. I think all three of these groups are quality groups. They bring different variables to the table, and I think it could work. I honestly do believe that. My biggest fear is the transition. When you go from 900 plus individual contractors to the U.S. government, 300,000 to 400,000 moves annually, and you give it to one, the relationships that have to be built, the IT systems that have to be built, the communication between IT systems, the payment process, and on and on. This is not going to be an easy transition. There's no one, no matter who they are in the world, who could do this like that. And it's going to be a wild ride.
You can't go backwards once you start going this direction. Once you get so far into it, how do you go backwards and set back time? You can't. You're kind of stuck. And like Megan Harless was saying, they don't believe there should be a plan B because it's going to work. It's bold. It's brave.
Well, and again, it might work, but how long is it going to take to get it to work? This isn't just paradigm shifting. I mean, you're taking a whole market segment and you are turning it 180 degrees on its head and just think, oh, well, we'll just make this work.
Well, and there's other extemporaneous forces here, like Larry mentioned. The industry is entered in the perfect storm because of COVID. Van operators have left to go haul higher paying freight. The days of the irregular hauler, owner, operator, American cowboy are coming to an end. Prime contractor KBR best understand van operators need to get paid or they will not be there to service the military.
I think that's 100% right.
I agree. I mean, who really wants to moving household goods is a very, very tough profession, Ben. When you can just go and bump docks to make similar money or more, I mean, that's not even a question.
Yeah. And I think this is all right. Stephen Meyer, again, all of these guys, I mean, we're not talking little companies here. We're talking from hundreds of millions in gross revenue to billions in gross revenue of these companies. They understand how to work with service providers and partners. The question comes, this is a slightly different ball game. It is a niche, the household goods arena, and then we're going household goods DoD arena. That's a different space, and they're going to have to learn that. Question is, how long?
Heather Martinelli says, I'm new to the real space, but aware Server does a lot of corporate work. How does this impact the corporate market overall?
It's a good question. We just don't know. I don't know, Chuck, but I don't know their commitment to this. We don't know if they're going to allocate massive amounts of resources. We just don't know. At least I don't.
Again, I don't know that they can make that determination. Can they? You guys know this better than anyone. Ben, you worked in that system. They have agents that are focused on corporate work. They have agents that are focused on COD. They have agents that focus on military. I don't think that they can force them. And then they have their drivers that are owner operators or that are van operators associated with an agency that are not owner operators. I mean, this is a whole mix. I don't think that there's any way for, you tell me, Ben, for corporate to just say, okay, all y'all are going to do DoD work now. I don't think it works.
Yeah, yeah, I can't tell you exactly the impact it's going to have, but I can tell you it's not going to be no impact. It's going to be a massive impact. For all the talk in the comments about military not paying well or whatever, military actually does pay pretty decent. It pays so well, the military move management companies have propped up and created a middle layer, and have taken that, and then stuff still gets hauled. So that's how well it pays. And to Oded's point, military discounts have been trending downward. So if it's anywhere in the ballpark of what they've been paying in the past, and assuming the prime contractor is willing to take a skinnier percentage over a larger program, I think there's going to be plenty of money getting to the curb. What that means for the corporate customer, though, is now they're going to be competing with discounts that they've never had to compete with in the past. Before, the only thing that they really had to worry about was COD tonnage, in my opinion, because the military hauler was just kind of this unique animal that was over there, and the military hauler and the corporate hauler didn't really meet. You didn't see a lot of corporate tonnage on military, trucks, and vice versa on military trips. Frankly, the origins and destinations were different. The paperwork was different. It was just kind of different. And now I think what's going to happen is the midterm effect of this is going to be a dramatic increase in the cost of corporate hauling, in my opinion. There's going to be friction from the changeover from all this military going into what was corporate and COD fleets, which is going to create a dramatic dearth of capacity that we're already seeing, continued dearth of capacity within those corporate haulers, and they're going to be charging more, just like we saw over the last consecutive summers. We've seen GRIs, general rate increases. So I think you're going to continue to see those. To Chuck's point earlier, we're continuing to see cardboard prices increase. We saw an incredible spike in lumber, which may or may not be a long-term thing. I don't know. It's settled down a little bit, but I think you're going to see a lot of price increases on all types of moving. So,
Ben, I think there's going to be some barriers still in place in the DoD arena. Access to bases, installations, getting on those bases can be a pain in the rear end. But I believe DoD is going to look more and more like corporate moving. You can take the stacks of rules and put them in the garbage can, and the drivers and those willing to service those kinds of shipments, this contract will make it easier for them, at least from the rules side. And so then it's going to be up to the drivers to say, I own this rig. Do I want to go over here and work on this contract and service this contract? Do I want to do corporate work? Which one's paying me the most, and which one has the lowest barriers? And the barrier will be lowered under this new contract.
Do you believe that the DTR goes out the window and it's commercial best practices now?
This is a total the contract now rules, not the DTR, et cetera, et cetera. That will be applicable only to those DoD personnel that are working. They're basically the corporate client, and they've got rules, and they'll operate by those rules. But just like any other contract that an RMC or a direct has, that's going to be the rules that are in place, and they're going to be. I can look at the DTR and all the different 400 NG and the international tender, all these rules, books of rules. You throw those in the garbage can. Now we've got this contract, and that's what governs. And I just think it opens the door to a lot more entities to say, you know what, maybe I'll take a look at DoD moving again. Megan had it. She said Game of Thrones. This is Game of Thrones, man. This is the survival of the fittest here. And who's offering the most money and the easiest way to get a job done.
Yeah, winter is coming. Brian Limperopoulos, if the people want to know, it's a round brush and a blow dryer. No products au naturel.
No, come on. Is that just
Chuck,
natural?
Look at that
natural
movement. Look at that
Chuck,
movement.
what do you use?
A razor. I use a razor.
Let's see here. We've got look, Kim Chancellor's in here.
Woo!
Says, do you know the basis used for selecting TSPs under Tier 1?
Well, under Tier 1, does she mean the company Tier 1? And
Imagine.
I think under this new program there is no such thing as a TSP anymore, Kim, in this new environment.
So
They're
let's
just
assume she
companies.
means carriers, like a carrier or a service provider.
Or agents.
Agent.
Yeah. I'm sure they're going to be putting out some type of quality document, some type of qualifications document. But I think it would be very streamlined. I would think it would be much in line with what corporate would say. You've got to be properly licensed and insured, and you have a certain quality level that will be maintained, and come on in the door.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chuck. There's going to be metrics probably set of this is what you have to meet, and if you meet these metrics, then you get business. If you don't, then we're going to go to the next in line type thing. But who knows until they come out and tell us.
Hit
But
that
it's up
like
to
button
them
out
to
there.
decide.
We got a couple more comments here before. I know we're running late on time here. Lynn says, understanding strength and footprint of agencies for self-haul capabilities within your direct household goods relationship. That's a tip that she has for Vinny and Jack and corporate folks out there. She did say the amount of restrictions of the van line was very little help this past season. I've heard that repeatedly, that van lines were not picking up tonnage. They were not hauling stuff. It's very much about having that relationship with the hauling company. Let's see. Larry says, Chuck, what does the term military intelligence mean in terms of this agreement?
I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Stop trying to get me in. Oh, Larry.
All right, is that an oxymoron?
No,
military
no.
intelligence.
Brian's got a great question here. Has the DoD outsourced something like this in the past? How'd that go?
It's done all kinds of things. It's done their POV, their personally owned vehicle contract is out there. Works pretty darn well for moving vehicles, but it's a lot easier when they drive their car to a pickup point where the contractor takes it from, ships it. Typically, these are all overseas locations, and then you come to the place to pick it up. They don't deliver it to your house or anything along those lines. There are a number of freight all kinds contracts that are contracted with a single entity to move and consolidate freight. There are multiple. They have an ocean shipping contract for moving Department of Defense freight of all different types. So in fact, most of what they do is FAR contracting, federal acquisition regulation, and not what we call the tender environment that we operate in household goods. Household goods is kind of the last bastion of that environment. Everything's going contract.
You know what's interesting about that too, Chuck? You bring up the POV contract. From what I recall, not being a party to it, being an outside observer, that contract had a lot of growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
Where cars got lost all over the
Yes,
right, Ben?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was stepping over.
Are you talking about when they switched contracts? Are you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I would tell you that the contract operated brilliantly for a number of years. They recompeted the contract, decided to change contractors. It had a very, very, very difficult transition to the point where there was congressional inquiry, hearings held on Capitol Hill, and they amended the contract multiple times to ensure that the new contractor was deemed successful. And now they do a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get to that point where you have a contract and you're investing literally billions of dollars in the contract, you can't just throw it away and say, oh, let's just start from scratch. You're going to massage it. You're going to make changes to it to be able to help make that contractor successful.
Well, understanding that the government's willing to do that, I mean, what would stop a bidder from going in, lowballing it, knowing that once they win it and the toothpaste is out of the tube, that they're just going to get the contract massaged, and they're good because they're too big to fail. I mean, that's scary. And then what's furthermore about this too, Brian, you bring up this question about the freight contract. The Freight of All Kinds contract, which is to a Chuck was talking about, the DTCI contract. When I was brand new to this business and I was going to NDTA forums and all sorts of stuff like that, when I first met Chuck and some of these SDDC, things, I remember that I could tell stories about that, Chuck. Anyway, and we don't got time. Don't worry, Chuck. And and that was supposed to save, I don't know, 10% or more, whatever. And then they went back and they looked at it and they found it didn't save anything. And what's more, they found corruption and overcharging that was going on. I remember I read a whistleblower complaint. I think it was against Estes, one of the freight companies that was billing things at different. So I mean, when you, in my opinion, and listen, I like a lot of the people involved on all sides of this bid. I mean, I have friends and all of it, and they're all great companies to your point. But there's something about a sole source that is anti-competitive.
Well, the word that many people even talk to me coming onto this program wanted me to use is monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
And is a monopoly? I don't think in terms of in a technical term, because this is in one segment of the market versus the entire market. It's just the government. But I will tell you, this is a major change. It smells a little bit like it's moving toward monopoly. And Miss Chancellor was on, and look, when 90% of the government traffic is associated with the DOD and it's moving under a contract, I am very afraid that the rest of the government will be subsumed under this contract at some point. And then this giant elephant in the room that does all U.S. government movement will start looking around and saying, what else is there for me? And so the word monopoly looms.
This is really interesting. We've got so many good points here. And I got to read some of these. Lynn says vaccine mandates could impact labor shortages even more likely. Only 50% of our industry is currently vaccinated. We could lose more personnel with the mandate. In addition, they would prefer to drive for freight carriers like UPS without the stress of working with all the conditions and of houses and stressed out customers.
Benny liked that comment.
Jake asks about how do you think that the government vaccine mandate will affect driver willingness to service military moves? First question, is it going to impact it? Is it going to apply to
It appears not. It appears not thus far, but it is to be determined. Government contractors and the vaccine mandate, right now is cleaved out an exception for specifically stated for household good companies, movers that are occasional contractors on government installations. That's right now, but that's under review. And so we'll see where that goes. But there are a number of, we've already talked about some of these contracts, but even smaller contracts at individual installations, a direct procurement method, which is a segment of DOD moving. Those are FAR contracts, and those will apply those vaccine mandates to those kinds of FAR contracts. If this would continue for a few years, this kind of requirement, then yes, it will affect the global household good contract as well. So this is very interesting to see what this may mean in the future and whether or not there's still going to be large segments of our population that choose not to be vaccinated.
Megan brings up a great question here. Company brings up a point. Companies who do not participate in the GHC can cater to the military community who prefer to do PPMs, personally procured moves, or DIDY moves, do-it-yourself moves. Lake goes on to ask the question, though, Megan, wonder how the DoD will determine reimbursement rates for PPMs under the GHC. Now, when I was in the PPM biz, it was 95% of what the government would have paid to move you based on your rank and amount of dependents. So they go against, the tender, the 400 NG, and say here to here, and here's the prevailing rate, and you're going to get 95% of that if you do it yourself. So if you rent a truck or get a mover or whatever, you keep the change. But in a situation like this where rates aren't filed, and we don't know what the best,
I mean, do we know anything about PPMs under this program, Chuck? I mean, I haven't heard a single word about it. Are they even, is this far-fetched? Are they going to allow it?
Oh, yeah, they're going to allow it. PPMs are part of it. I think that there is some management responsibility that will be shared between the installation managers, the DoD civilian folks. The question is, how will the reimbursement rates, as Lake was asking, how will those be determined? As Megan said, good question. I'm not so sure that has yet been determined. I know there is a role for the contractor to play, though, in this, and maybe the contractor will see this as a business opportunity and have the ability to have, as an outlet, access to information for those military families that want to do PPMs and provide them with resources.
Apparently, Vinny's stealing all our drivers.
Come on, Vinny.
TS is hiring. He just hired 65,000.
Come on. I knew Vinny was going to like that one.
Vinny, we just need like 10,000 of them. You don't got to take them all, man.
I don't think I hate to say it. I hope Vinny's not talking about 65,000 drivers. I hope he's talking about personnel, because if they got 65,000 drivers from somewhere, we're all in big trouble.
Can I live?
By the way, Mike, you better look outside.
I want some brown shorts on my drivers this summer. I'll take it. Honestly, if we could just get them to wear a uniform, that'd be great. Vinny, thank you. Vinny, is that all drivers, or how does that personnel break down? I'd love to know. And how many are you moving? And
can I get that contract?
And holler at
that contract.
Jack saying, good point. Lingard industry will have to pay more for household goods drivers. That will result in rise of prices. We as corporations will have no choice but to pay more for household goods or decide to relocate less employees.
That's exactly where I was going to go. Jack answered the question before. What if corporate looks at this and says, in this new environment, Zoom environment, do we need to move our personnel as much? That's scary to us movers.
Yeah, it's right, exactly. Right. What will the market bear from an increased cost? Or do these people still get relocated, but they end up doing DIDY moves? They end up getting sums. That's right. Jake brings up a great point. The contract has financial penalties for missing RDDs. That's required delivery dates. This summer, for reasons that would have been out of the control of the contractor, 60% of required delivery dates were missed. What would the total penalty have been? So much that they would have demanded relief from that penalty or walked from the contract? If so, then what's the point? Monopolies have a lot of power. He's saying 60% of RDDs were missed this summer.
That's for sure in the international arena. And it could be that or higher coming in from Asia to the West Coast with all the problems we're having at LA, Long Beach, San Francisco, Oakland. It's nuts. We all know that. We read about it every day in all the periodicals. And Jake is right. We are held accountable for paying what they call inconvenience claims for military members. We miss an RDD, we have to pay for every day that we're late on that. Even though many of the late shipments are not at all responsible for any act by the transportation service provider. Wonder what they would say to that contractor. That contractor says no. What are they going to do?
Greg Lindstrom has a question. How does the Federal Service Contract Act come into play? FAR
Applies. Applies. Again, I think Greg knows the answer to this, but he's teeing it up. Yes, the FAR contracts, the Service Contract Act, which sets prevailing wages in areas for the contract that the contractor must pay. So the Service Contract Act does apply. It does not apply in DP3. Now, just the regular economics of supply and demand come into play. So yeah, there are minimum wages that you are dictated you have to pay at the contractor level and at your subcontractor level, and you have to document it, and it's auditable. Need to have it auditable, and that's a big cost driver.
Yeah, great points here. Dan Bradley corrected me, not sole source, but single prime contractor.
I think Dan heard that before, once or twice.
Yeah. So sole source, and Dan has schooled me on this, means that they only go out to a single entity basically to bid on it. Mm-hmm. That's a sole. Now we've had multiple bidders, but a single prime contractor is awarded.
Look at this. It's also the prevailing wages or thing that you were just describing, Chuck. Lake saying that provides for 3 and 4 weeks of paid vacation after certain years of service. That's interesting. Wow, cool.
Hope they're not taking it in June.
I see some movers out there to talk about getting that last week of June, first week of July holiday off, just to send a message. That'll be interesting. We're way over time. Everybody out there, thank you so much. Hit that like button, smash that like button a million times. Let us know you enjoyed this conversation. Fantastic talk here. I can't thank you all enough for being here, Michael, Chuck, Oded, in spirit. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just leave us with maybe just a final thought from each of you. Michael, final thought.
I knew you were going to ask me this question, final thought question. So, I would say if you gave me a crystal ball right now and you asked me what am I to expect over the next year, I don't know, right? And I don't know when this is going to be implemented. But what I can tell you is that based on previous contracts, people have asked about it, like what happened and under other previous contracts. The only word I can come up with is that first initial implementation is chaos. It's probably not going to roll out in perfect fashion. There's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of new relationships, a lot of buzz out there. So what I would tell everybody is buckle up. First of all, we haven't even started the process yet. It's almost a guarantee, I would think, that someone's going to protest this. So we got that process first. Like Chuck said, we got some federal stuff that's probably going to take place, possibly prolonging this even longer. So buckle up is what I would say. This is going to be a long ride.
Yeah, seriously. Chuck, final thought.
You know what? It's funny, Michael. I couldn't have said it better myself. I thought exactly the same thing. I do think all three of the bidders could potentially do a great job with this contract. I was not happy at the very beginning when this was discussed. My association fought it for quite a while. It continued to move forward. Okay. I think it's going to move forward. Just like Michael, I think the transition is going to be a rough ride. And hopefully there's a few bodies left standing at the end of this to be able to do the job as it was envisioned. But there's all kinds of IT issues, contracting issues, relationship issues, claims issue. I mean, there are so many I's to dot and T's to cross. It's going to be a wild ride, I think. I'm with you.
Yeah, it will be. And thanks to all the folks out there that help us move these men and women service providers all over the world and their families. It is a team effort in the truest sense to get everyone where they need to be in support of the mission. So thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Thanks to all the drivers out there who tuned in.
Those are the ones.
Those are the service providers. Yeah. Thanks so much to all the corporate clients who also tuned in today, all the TSPs, the wonderful information. This is an epic show, and we'll keep you updated if anything changes. That's my commitment here. We've been along for the ride on this for the last 2 years now. So thanks for being with us on this. Hit that like button again, please. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Ken. Look at the amazing people out here that are here with us today. Tomorrow, we got some students from University of Texas at Dallas, the only undergrad program in the country actively teaching global mobility. They're going to be here with us tomorrow. So this is the future, the best and the brightest here, okay? Now, bad news, they're not drivers. But good news is they're smarter than most of us, and we get to find out what they're thinking. So
is that Kerwin's program, by the way?
Yeah, Kerwin and Hubert Zadorek at the University of Texas Dallas, and we're going to have
IAM is going to work with them on this. Yeah,
that's awesome, amazing young people. So this is fantastic, everybody. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate y'all. It's good to be back after a week absence. Thanks, everybody. Take care.